America is facing an assault, an invasion. And if we don't get serious about this right now, we are going to lose our country. We're very close. We may be past the tipping point already. I'm not exactly sure. So I'm going to start this out by citing some facts. I'll just do some factual statements, some irrefutable facts, a series of statements. And then I'll talk about the interpretation, connecting the dots, and what those facts actually mean, and why we could lose America if we don't stop what's happening right now. So does that sound fair enough? I'll start with the facts, and then I'll let you know when I go into the interpretation. So let's start with some facts. So leftists, we'll use leftists and liberals synonymously here. Liberals, you could say, are verbally assaulting and shouting down Trump supporters and members of the Trump staff in public places, such as restaurants, movie theaters. You know, it could include other places as well. I mean, it absolutely will. But leftists believe that people who support Trump do not have the right to eat at a restaurant or engage in any other function in a public place. That's a fact. Now, I'll come back to that in the interpretation. Leftists believe that America should have no borders whatsoever, that no one should be stopped from entering the country. Leftists believe that the minute illegals come into the United States, they should be granted voting rights. Leftists believe that also the minute illegals come into the United States, they should start to receive welfare benefits, entitlements, free education, free healthcare, and so on. Leftists are now protesting ICE enforcement offices across the country. The protests are growing, and they want to abolish ICE, which of course stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Leftists want to shut down any enforcement of the United States border, especially the southern border. Leftists, they believe and they state that they think that Trump is actually Hitler. They now believe and state that people who support Trump are Nazis. They use this designation to justify the violence that they are carrying out against Trump supporters through acts of domestic terrorism carried out by groups, radical left-wing groups such as Antifa. Antifa has systematically and deliberately violently attacked Trump supporters, bashing them over the heads with bike locks, for example, felony assaults, and other types of assaults. Again, these are straight facts. This is not interpretation yet. These are things that are happening in America. Fact, the left-wing media is complicit in whipping up mass hysteria among leftists. Fact, the left-wing media is using fake news photographs in order to accomplish that goal. For example, that screaming, crying 2-year-old migrant girl photo has been revealed as a hoax. She was not separated from her mother. Her family was well off. They actually paid a coyote $6,000 to carry them across the border, to transport them. You know, coyotes are human traffickers. And that little girl was never separated from her mother. She was simply hungry, according to her own father, by the way. That photograph was used deceptively by the media in order to whip up mass hysteria using a false premise. Other photographs circulated by leftists are also a hoax. For example, there's a very popular photograph of looks like a young child in a cage. It was a zoomed in, cropped in photo. It was actually the child of a parent in Texas who they had set up a cage in an indoor facility in order to protest border policies, and they put their own children in that cage, and then they took pictures of their own children, and then those pictures got shared by other people who said, look, children are being kept in cages by Trump. Okay, that's another fact, straight fact. Fact, President Obama separated parents from children. Fact, the Democrats hope to bring in as many illegals as possible so that they can win more elections, because people from impoverished nations and Central and South American nations tend to vote Democrat. That's a fact. Many of the so-called children that are being brought into America are actually able-bodied, what we would consider to be adults, 18, 19, 20, 21 years old, actually military-age men that the New York Times in particular calls migrant children who were separated from their parents. Okay, I could probably think of a few more facts, but I think you get the picture. Now, let's go into interpretation. This is the important part. Interpretation. The United States of America is being attacked. The United States of America is being invaded, assaulted by foreign nationals who are being used as pawns by anti-American forces inside the United States, which includes the left-wing media that despises America, that hates democracy, that hates the outcome of the 2016 election, and has been working feverishly to try to overthrow Trump. Interpretation. Left-wing politicians cannot win debates and arguments based on reason and historical facts and logic. They have resorted to whipping up mass hysteria to have a shouting contest nationwide, because the only way they can get votes is to have people enraged and screaming and, frankly, driven almost to the point of insanity or mass mental illness with rage. Faux outrage, we might say. A lot of it, of course, is fake. A lot of it is engineered outrage. Interpretation. The left-wing media is complicit in this invasion of the United States of America. The left-wing media, as well as left-wing liberals, they believe that no nation should have borders. And thus they think that enforcing our borders here in the United States is somehow wrong, when of course every nation in the world enforces its borders, and in almost all cases more strictly than the United States. I mean, just Mexico enforces its borders more than we do in America. Not to mention, Israel, which of course has more aggressive enforcement for lots of obvious reasons. This invasion of America is an act of war. And the left-wing media, with all of its actors, such as Rachel Maddow, fake crier, these actors are complicit in waging war against the United States of America. In my view, we should deploy military troops on the southern border of America. Because while we have posse comitatus, troops cannot be deployed domestically, because we don't want soldiers doing domestic police operations. We can defend our borders with the military. In fact, that action is specifically prescribed by the Constitution itself. It is the most proper role of the military. President Trump, in my opinion, should deploy U.S. troops on the border between the United States and Mexico, right there on the border. We should arrest and turn back every illegal immigrant who is trying to invade America. We can turn them back together without separating families, for example. If you show up, our military will detain you and will turn you back around and ship you off to where you came from. That is the policy that we need. It doesn't have to be a physical wall, it just has to be an enforcement wall enforced by the proper role of the United States military, because this is a military invasion of the United States that's taking place right now. It's a military invasion disguised as a migrant, refugee, undocumented immigrant type of inflow. It's actually an attempt to occupy and overthrow the United States of America by any means necessary. There are groups that are using the wave of illegal immigration to bring operatives into California, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas. They are part of criminal MS-13 gangs. They are part of La Raza, which has the goal of taking back parts of Mexico that were once Mexico and yet are now the United States of America. Where I live in Texas was once a part of Mexico, for example. La Raza wants it back. And they are now taking advantage of Democrats and liberals and their false compassion and their desire to win elections to flood the United States with foreign nationals whose goal is to occupy, invade, and overthrow the United States of America. Again, the media is complicit in this process. Now, at the same time, we have Maxine Waters. She is just one of many lawmakers who is openly eliciting mass violence or aggressive shouting down, I should say, of conservatives and Trump supporters. She said that God is on her side somehow, and that people on the left should scream and shout down and kick conservatives out of restaurants and gas stations and malls and movie theaters and whatever else she said. I'm paraphrasing, obviously, her statement. She is fomenting an escalation of violence in America that is very likely to lead to, if not civil war, definitely bloodshed and shootings. Maxine Waters, in my opinion, should be arrested right now for her role in eliciting violence in America. Maxine Waters should know better. She's African American. She should know that the history of black people in America was that they were kicked out of restaurants because of who they were, because they were black. Now Maxine Waters thinks that liberals should kick conservatives out of restaurants because of who they are, because of their belief system. Maxine Waters is a disgrace to this country. She is engaged in what I believe is a criminal escalation, calling for violence in the streets of America to be committed against the most valued patriots and pro-America, pro-Constitution individuals who love their country and simply want to defend our nation's borders and support our president, who was democratically elected through the Electoral College, through a constitutional process. But people like Maxine Waters, who, let's just face it, she is batshit crazy. She is unfit for office by any rational definition. And she is leading other insane, deranged, left-wing lunatics to an escalation of acts of violence that may lead this country to kinetic conflict. Now, that is the plan. And this is the big picture in all of this. You got to understand, when the left is not in power, they want to sow chaos and discord in order to destabilize the president that is in power. This escalation of anger and hatred and kinetic warfare, even shooting each other in the streets, maybe civil war, this is deliberate, it is planned, and I can tell you from multiple sources that I will not divulge, this is being carried out by none other than, this is masterminded by Barack Hussein Obama, working hand in hand with globalists who are attempting to overthrow the United States of America in conjunction with deep state swamp creatures who still persist inside the DOJ, the State Department, and the FBI, working in conjunction with Hillary Clinton, one of the most dangerous, fraudulent criminals in the history of American politics. They are hoping to sow massive violence in the United States so that they can then call for United Nations peacekeepers. The goal is to bring in the UN peacekeepers, have Obama in a very high-powered position or a highly influential position at the UN or leading the UN invasion of America, going door to door, confiscating the guns of any last remaining patriots or Trump supporters or anyone who believes in the Constitution. At the same time, they plan to flood the borders with an invading, occupying enemy force of foreign nationals. At the same time, they plan massive uprisings of deranged radical leftists in the cities, in 25 plus cities across America. They plan to go door to door executing Trump supporters. This is a repeat of the Cultural Revolution that led to Communist China. It's history repeating itself. The plan is in place. It is an insidious plan. It involves the media, which I call the journo terrorists of America, who many of whom should also be arrested and indicted for treason and for inciting violence in this country and for crimes against the United States of America. It involves the media. It involves radical left-wing zombies, you got to call them, these deranged lunatic leftists. It involves Google, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, who are run by these deranged left-wing lunatics to silence any opposition. It involves a United Nations plan to invade the United States of America, to confiscate guns, take away the Second Amendment, while the tech giants take away your First Amendment, and then to exterminate all conservatives, libertarians, pro-liberty, pro-Trump, pro-Constitution individuals in America. This is the plan. The plan is to exterminate you if you believe in the Constitution. Think about the pattern. Right now, we know that the mask has come off the left. They used to pretend like they wanted common sense gun control. They wanted reasonable limits on free speech. They wanted to get along. They wanted to respect democracy. They said it's impossible to steal the election when they thought Hillary was going to win. And then when she lost, they said, oh my God, the Russians stole the election. I mean, these people are pathetic, right? They're pathetic and they're dangerous. They believe that you, if you're a conservative or a Christian or a Trump supporter, they believe that you not only do not have a right to speak, you do not have a right to eat at a public restaurant, they believe that you do not have the right to ride a bus, to engage in commerce, because Visa and MasterCard are banning the e-commerce accounts of companies that are Trump supporters, such as Freestarter, for example. Not only do they believe all those things, that you don't have a right to speak, you don't have a right to engage in commerce, you don't have a right to upload videos to YouTube, you don't have a right to eat at a restaurant, to ride a bus, anything. More importantly, they believe that you do not have the right to exist. And they want to exterminate you. And they are on the verge of trying to do so. They are being driven to the point of mass insanity, engineered as a plan to carry out this attempted mass, I don't know what you call it, like a cultural revolution.